Hello, Matt Walsh.
Joe Rogan.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Officially. Your documentaries, I can't tell you how many people have asked me if I've seen it. I think it's one of the most eye-opening things that's ever been done on this whole gender confusion thing that we're going through right now in our culture. And it was just like one of those things where I had to watch. Like, so many people were like, you have to see this. You have to see this. And I expected it to be like, I thought it would be like arguments with people, or it would be very, very confrontational. But instead, I think you did it masterfully. What you did is you just let these people explain themselves the way they would talk if you weren't there, the way they would talk to people who agree with what they're saying. And by not pushing back, I think you allowed them to let all the crazy out. And it's like, it's hard to describe to people that aren't aware of what's going on, of how wild this stuff has gotten. But first of all, tell me, what was the process of making this? Like, how long did it take? What was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, thanks for talking about it so much on your podcast, by the way. It's been a huge boost for us. And I had this idea. You'd really have to go back several years, because it occurred to me maybe back in, 2017, that when this transgender stuff was starting to really gain mainstream traction, which I think happened really, that was like maybe when Bruce Jenner became Caitlyn Jenner. That was the moment that I think it exploded onto the mainstream. Not when it began, but it exploded into mainstream. Right around that time, it sort of occurred to me that the people promoting this stuff have a problem, which is that we're supposed to accept someone like Bruce as a woman, but then what exactly does that mean? What are we accepting him as? Like, he says, I identify as a woman. Well, what are you identifying as? What are we? If you're a woman, well, I know what a woman was before, but if now we're including a guy like Bruce, then what is a woman now? And so I started asking this question. It was really basic, just like, what is a woman? What are you trying to say about womanhood now? And couldn't get anyone to answer it. I mean, and mostly it's just on Twitter, and challenging someone on the left. Just give me a definition. What's your definition of the word? And none of them would do it. So at a certain point, I thought, well, we have to find a way to go out and put this question in front of them. And that's sort of where the idea for the documentary came from. And we knew going in that we wanted two things, well, three things. One is we have the mission behind it, the message that we want to get across, but we also want it to be a piece of entertainment, because a lot of conservative documentaries, not all of them, but many of them are just, you feel like you're watching an extended version of a podcast or something. It's not a piece of entertainment. So we wanted it to be that, and then we also knew that the way this is going to work, if it works at all, is if I'm just asking questions, because if it's me going on a tour around the country yelling at people, that would be satisfying for me emotionally, but it just wouldn't prove anything other than what people already know, which is that two sides yell at each other. So we wanted to give sort of gender ideology a chance to hang itself by its own incoherences, which I think is what happened.
I think you definitely accomplished that, and that it's so funny that question, what is a woman, is so difficult to answer. And then they'll say, well, someone who identifies as a woman. And you say, well, what does that mean, though?
Right.
And then they want to just stop talking. Like, what was the politician that actually had you leave his office when you?
Yeah, we had a couple that stormed out, but only one made it on camera, and that was Mark Takano, congressman in California, and he's one of the advocates. There's a reason we chose all these people. It wasn't just random. He's an advocate. He's not just a Democrat politician. He's an advocate for the Equality Act, which is this push by Democrats to kind of federalize all this stuff on a national level, so that all across the country, for example, men have the right to use a women's restroom, and opens up all the sports teams and all that. Just settles it, takes it away from the states, and so he's an advocate of that. And he's a good guy to talk to. And he sat there for about 30 minutes, especially when I'm asking him the easy questions, and he would give his like filibustering answer. But then once I started asking real questions, that's when he got really uncomfortable. You could even see in the film, he keeps looking over my shoulder, and that's because his aide is standing right behind my back the entire time. And but she never. I kept expecting her to cut it off and shut it down, but she never did. And eventually he just had enough of it and he got up and left. But the thing that made him leave was I didn't even get to ask him the what is a woman question. I asked him, I asked him, you know, there are males who want to use the women's restroom or the women's locker room, but then there are females who don't want to see an individual with a penis in the locker room. So you've got two competing claims here, two people who have feelings. The women who feel like they don't want to see this, it makes them feel bad to see it. And then the men who it makes them feel bad if they can't use the restroom. So who wins out? How do you balance that? I think it's a fair question.
It's a very good question.
And that's when he just got up and said, the interview's over.